The Flores situation is going to continue to grow and evolve and spark storylines that weren't part of the original lawsuit. I still have a list of issues that I want to get to with blurbs at PFT coming straight from the lawsuit itself, and I can't get to them because there's more stuff that's happening. And one of the things that happened yesterday, Bobby L. Rush, a longtime member of the House of Representatives, a Democrat from Illinois, your favorite state in the union, has asked for a hearing to be held on the issue of systemic discrimination in the National Football League. Now, it doesn't mean a hearing will happen, but it is one member of Congress who is appealing to the chairperson of the committee he belongs to, a committee that has jurisdiction over sports in the United States, to take action and to take a look at this. And it took one day. The Washington football team situation percolated for weeks, if not months, until Congress finally realized there may be something going on here with this workplace misconduct and how the NFL investigated and brushed stuff under the rug. We should probably take a look at it. It took months for that to happen. It took one day for this to start. And it doesn't surprise me, and I think it's just the beginning of the things Congress is going to be interested in.
Mike, let's do this real quick. It's a fun little game because I was in transit all day yesterday, so I missed a lot of the news. Can we do a quick refresher for the people at home where I can ask a question and you can tell me, because people, hop in this story at various spots, and I'm like wondering where exactly everything is. So obviously the text messages from Bill Belichick, the Rooney Rule, that's something that's needed to be fixed for a very long time in the NFL. I think we all can agree that the Rooney Rule, in principle, when it was created, was a very good idea. And there's probably some good that came from it, but there's some clear loopholes and flaws in it that we see brought to light when Brian Flores goes to basically what we all assume now was a sham interview with the Giants so they can check that box. That part makes sense to me. Where are we at with the Stephen Ross part? Because to me, that is a story that could potentially bring the NFL to its knees in a way. If an owner is actually paying for losses, it's mind blowing. Taking exists in sports, but for something like that to happen, and if it's ever proven true, it's incredible. Like I said, the Rooney Rule needs to be fixed, and the racism that comes in the hiring process, I think everyone knows it, and it's got to be fixed. And I'm happy Brian Flores is looks like he's going to shine a light on what we all knew was an issue. So where does that all stand now?
Well, and let's put a pin in the Stephen Ross tanking side of it, because that's become the primary issue that is unrelated to the reason that he filed the lawsuit. But it's like the TV show that had the spinoff, and the spinoff has become bigger than the TV show that spawned it. I feel like the spinoff of the Brian Flores lawsuit is potentially going to become a bigger deal for the NFL, even though the lawsuit itself is a pretty damn big deal and was long overdue. You mentioned the Rooney Rule. Quick history lesson. The Rooney Rule 20 years ago was the product of the threat of potential litigation. Two lawyers, Cyrus Mary, the late Johnny Cochran, came together and said to the NFL, hey, if you guys don't do something about this abysmal, and there's no arguing it, it is an abysmal track record of hiring black coaches. You need to do something about it, or we will. So it was the credible threat of litigation that got the NFL to come up with what was initially a very simple requirement. One minority candidate must be interviewed for every head coaching vacancy. Over time, the loopholes resulted in changes aimed at preventing teams from circumventing it. For example, when Jerry Jones hired Bill Parcells to coach the Cowboys, he did a perfunctory phone call to Dennis Green, the former Vikings coach, who had not yet been hired by the Cardinals, and interviewed him that way. And then everyone says, you can't comply by just calling a guy up. It's got to be face to face. So over time, there would be efforts by teams to get around it, and they'd have to plug the loopholes so it would become a meaningful opportunity. And the idea was, the more that guys get interviews, the more that their name gets in circulation, the more opportunities they get to interview. It becomes a snowball that builds and builds, and eventually they get jobs. That was the idea, because you can't force these teams to hire anyone. So the Flores lawsuit, it's a combination of the macro and the micro. The macro is what we know. The track record is abysmal. Troy Vincent, the NFL Executive VP of Football Operations, is on the record with quotes that, I used to practice law, I used to handle cases like this. If I'm handling a case like this, they're hard to prove. Nobody's going to admit to anything. You have to use circumstantial evidence. You have to aggressively question people. You have to hope that they break at the right time. You have to hope you can catch them in some sort of an inconsistency. But when you have words straight from the mouth of a top executive of the organization saying things like, the system is broken, there's a double standard, that makes my job a lot easier. So that part of it, the extent to which there were sham interviews, whether with the Broncos in 2019, the Giants in 2021, whether or not there is evidence that black coaches get paid less than their white counterparts, whether or not they're held to a higher standard than their counterparts once they get those jobs, that's all part of the racial discrimination side of it. And, Big Cat, yesterday, Peter King and I were talking about this, and as we worked our way through it, I came to the conclusion, I want your thoughts on this. The NFL consists of $32 billion football operations. One of them is publicly owned. Even though the stock is worthless, it's publicly owned. There's a board of directors, there's a CEO, etc. The other 31, it's a really rich guy who does whatever he wants all the time. Or a really rich person. There are more females who are involved in ownership, but you're talking about the American oligarchs who have amassed tremendous wealth, who have super yachts, who own companies, who have a bunch of sycophants around them saying, hey, great idea, boss, all the time. They do what they want to do. And, oh, yeah, the NFL's got these policies and the NFL's got this desire to develop, but I'm ultimately going to do what I want to do. I think at some point, all the teams need to be corporations, or at least run like corporations. You need to have boards of directors with diverse representation of the community in which the team resides on the actual board of directors. You need to have committees responsible for corporate governance. You need to have checks and balances to prevent what ultimately, look, the road to proving the connection from we're looking for a coach and the vast majority of the time the coach that's hired is white, like it's hard to find the smoking gun, but you find the dead body. So there's a problem. And I think the problem ultimately is it's guy who made a lot of money in real estate, guy who made a lot of money in auto parts, guy who or person who inherited team from really rich family member and really doesn't know what the hell he or she is doing. That's got to change before the fundamental problem is going to change, I think.
So how would that happen though? Because I don't know these owners. I don't know any of them personally, but I do know someone who has that type of money and that type of power is not going to just give it up. They're not going to say, oh, this is something I want to do. I mean, when you think about sports ownership in general, it is a toy for a lot of very rich people that are like, this is the last, thing that you can do where you can have insane importance and everyone in the community in the city looks up to you and says, oh, there goes the owner. And for a lot of them, especially when it comes to the, America, it's the NFL. The NFL is the most lucrative league. It's the league that gets the most eyeballs. So if you get one of those 32 seats, like we see how hard it is to even get, we're going to get to it, I think. But like Dan Snyder's been an owner and he's not going to stop being an owner. And there's a lot of things that could have probably stopped him from being an owner along the way. And he has been able to keep that spot. So I like what you're saying in principle. I just don't know practicality. Like, how does that actually work out?
Well, the practicality is the NFL gets to the point where it throws its hands in the air and says, this just doesn't work anymore. We've been sued by this guy. We've been sued by this guy. We can't fix it no matter how many times we're brought to the light of day for these hiring practices. They're not getting any better. The other side of it, though, and the first thought of potential corporate ownership in the NFL came to me a few years back. I was talking to an owner about how the values of teams are going up and up and up, and the proliferation of gambling is making the values go up and up, and the average team is going to be worth 8 to 10 billion sooner than we realize. You're going to find that there's no suitable person with the money to comply with the NFL's rule that the controlling owner has to have 30%. You got to have the cash to buy 30%. You got to have the cash to run the team. There just aren't enough oligarchs to go around. That could be part of it that spurs this. And what it could be is one team at a time has an IPO. Wouldn't that be something? Pittsburgh Steelers having an initial public offering. You can buy real stock, not fake stock. Not fake stock that you just get a certificate and you put it on your wall and you say, oh, I can now say we, and it doesn't mean I'm walking around with a mouse in my pocket. It means I'm part of this. You get real stock that you can buy and sell and that it appreciates. It's like any other corporation. It may start one team at a time. It may start with the Broncos. Maybe the Broncos can't find somebody who's going to fork over the $4 billion or whatever they want for their team. Maybe they decide to pull the plug on this, especially with them being one of the named defendants in this lawsuit. Maybe they decide we're just going to have an initial public offering. We're not even going to sell it. Now, 24 of 32 owners would have to agree to change the model and allow it, but the Packers have been that way for 100 years. So, maybe we kind of trip over plutonium by accident as a result of this, but that's the way to fix the problem, and it may solve a lot of other problems that are looming for the NFL.
It's an interesting thought. I still am very skeptical just because I don't know who's going to sell. Like you said, the price goes up and up and up. I mean, so we obviously had the Panthers situation. What was the last time a team was sold just because the owner just didn't want to own it anymore? What was that? Like, there's been deaths. There's been, families have shifted, and the Panthers, like, what was the last time it was an outright, I don't really want to own this team anymore?
Pete mentioned to me, and I think he's right, Wayne Weaver, the founder of the Jaguars, sold to Shad Khan 10 years ago. So these teams don't change hands very often. Oh, the Browns in 2012, yep. Jimmy Haslam bought the Browns. He's found himself mired in this. Stephen Ross got on the scene just a couple of years before Shad Khan. There was a lot of movement a decade or so ago, but the teams have been pretty much consistent since then. But it would have to happen one team at a time. First of all, you got to change the rule to allow corporate ownership of NFL franchises, other than the Packers. It's too late to put the toothpaste back in the tube on the Packers because the public shares are all over the place. They're not going to go buy them up. It's done. It's over. They will always be publicly owned, even though they're not publicly traded. But if the NFL changes its business model, that's when, for example, the Broncos could say, we're just going to have an initial public offering and we're going to become a corporation. And then maybe someday, and it usually happens when family doesn't have the money to pay the estate taxes after the patriarch or the matriarch of the family dies, or there's no one in the family that really wants to do this. When the Bills were sold to Terry and Kim Pagula, that's one of the more recent ones. That's since Shad Khan and Jimmy Haslam.
That's a death.
Ralph Wilson dies. Nobody in the family wants to run the team, so they sell it to the highest bidder. That was when some high-profile individuals were trying to buy the Buffalo Bills. Whether or not their actual assets matched what they claimed is a different story altogether. But that would have been an occasion to say, you know what, we're just going to have an initial public offering. We're going to make this a corporation if it was a permissible business structure. So it's not something that would happen with stock in all teams available to be purchased the same day. It would be one at a time, and it would migrate that way over the next 50 years or longer. And you'd have some that are publicly owned and some that are privately owned. But I'll tell you what, once the publicly owned corporations that are NFL teams start showing the rest of the league how to do it properly, maybe that would force the privately owned businesses to change too.
Now my mind simply just goes to one spot. Like, I'm just thinking of it, selfishly, my own life, like how much it would stink to not only watch a bad product on the field, but also have your team's stock trading at like $4. That's definitely going to be part of it, right? Like, the Bears are trading at $7, whereas the Patriots and the Rams are trading at $1.50. And I'm just sitting there like, well, this stinks again. So yeah, I mean, just another humiliation for all the bad franchises. I like that.
But, another extension of the concept of gambling. If you don't want to place your bets during games, you can place your bet the way that rich folks have been placing bets for years.
Yeah.
Go play the stock market. So I think there's and it's funny. I'm saying all of this understanding the chances of it happening are extremely small, but at the same time, it makes a crap load of sense. It really does. That this is a way to solve these problems, because at the end of the day, it is American oligarch who is used to always getting his way. One of the privileges of being really rich is you don't even have to ask. The people around you are so in tune with what you want, you never have to even say, or you shouldn't have to say, boy, I'd really like it if you'd go lose those games so we can draft Joe Burrow next year. That's how coddled and insulated and powerful these people are, and I don't know that it's conducive to operating a business in a way that complies with all federal, state, and local civil rights laws.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting idea, and you're right. I feel awful for Brian Flores just reading those text messages, because I just think about his initial, you get good news and you're like, oh man, this is going to be incredible. The Giants really want me. He's from Brooklyn or maybe the Bronx. But either way, having that then shoe drop as soon as Bill Belichick realizes that he's, a 70-year-old man who doesn't really know how to use technology. It's terrible. And you're right. It does need to change. I don't know how it changes under the current structure, because really rich people who have been rich for a very long time get to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and no one can tell them different. And we're at a point where someone's, there's going to be some pushback. But if I had to put my money on it, the rich guys will probably win this round, and then we'll go to another round, and then we'll go to another. You know what I mean? So it's a slowly but surely kind of thing where you'll slowly get the push that maybe you get to in 100 years. Mike Florio's idea. I like that.
Well, and the reality is that when they finally have their reckoning, after doing whatever they feel like doing, whatever they choose to do, regardless of whether or not it tramples on the rights of others or complies with all applicable laws, whether criminal or civil, when they finally have their reckoning, they say to themselves, I got off a lot easier than I should have. And I'll write the check, and there's plenty more where that came from. I mean, really, that's the attitude. So it's going to require
that's the
Panthers'
perfect
storm
story
of controversies.
Yeah.
And he got $2 billion
walking
plus
away with a check. Right.
Yeah. What a humiliation. What an embarrassment. I'm going to sell the team and walk away with over $2 billion. And people got mad about that. It's like, what do you expect? You force him to sell the team. We're not taking the organization from him. The worst they can do is force someone to sell. So, if Stephen Ross would be forced to sell at some point, he gets to keep the money that comes from the sale of the team.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.